Hey guys, tonight we slip into a story that starts in the most awkward corner of your family's living room. Dim lamp, stale coffee table cookies, and your parents giving you that look. You know the one. The "we need to talk" look that could either mean someone's died or someone's disappointed in your body. Spoiler, it's the second one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're minding your own business, probably halfway through a rerun of some reality show that makes you feel better about your own dysfunction, when your parents sit you down. There's that faux sweet tone, that chirpy, so you know your sister's wedding is coming up, and you're already bracing yourself for the twist. They say it's about you. About how you'll be in the spotlight, how everyone will be taking photos, and how it would be so amazing if you felt confident. But you know what they mean. They don't even pretend you aren't the family's designated before picture. The final blow? Your mom sighs and says, "It's just, we don't want you to regret how you look in the photos." Ancient Romans believed physical beauty reflected moral virtue. Pretty problematic, considering most of their emperors were basically chaos goblins. Historians still argue whether those standards were meant to shame or simply to stratify power. Either way, you're now stuck in the modern version of that. Passive-aggressive bridal body politics. You try to laugh it off, but that night, lying in bed, their words echo louder than your ceiling fan. You know something has to give. You just didn't expect it to be you. The next morning, you wake up to a text from your dad. It's a link to a local gym called Sweat Nation. There's a grinning cartoon dumbbell in the logo, and everything smells vaguely of mildew and desperation. You walk in and are immediately assaulted by fluorescent lights and the scent of overcooked protein powder. They've signed you up for a full 3-month bridal burn boot camp, which sounds less like a fitness plan and more like an Elizabethan punishment. Your assigned trainer, Chad, has teeth so white they practically blink in Morse code. He claps his hands and says, "Let's crush it," and you start planning your funeral. Your first workout is equal parts tragic and hilarious. You're panting after 5 minutes on the elliptical. The rowing machine makes your knees sound like maracas. At one point, you legitimately fall off a foam roller. An older woman nearby offers you a pity banana. You consider marrying her instead of dealing with this wedding nonsense. In medieval France, nobles used to wrap themselves in animal fat and sit in saunas to sweat out sin. You wonder if they ever did it while being judged by a wall of protein shake ads featuring shirtless Vikings. Historians still debate whether these rituals were health-focused or just elaborate excuses to nap in warm rooms. Meanwhile, your family is texting daily for weight updates. Your sister sends a motivational meme that says skinny feels better than cake. You consider replying with a photo of Marie Antoinette and a burning cake emoji. At night, you fall into bed with muscles you didn't know existed, screaming, cramping, and plotting revenge. But underneath all the resentment, there's something else. A flicker of curiosity. What if you really could change? Not for them. For you. 3 weeks in, you're sitting in your car outside the gym chewing the world's saddest salad. Wilted lettuce. Dry chicken. A lone cherry tomato that looks like it regrets its life choices. You're exhausted, hungry, and one vaguely inspirational Chad quote away from a public meltdown. Your phone buzzes. Another text from your mom. "Just checking in. Remember, no carbs after 4. You hurl a crouton into the void and consider running away to join a monastery, but instead you scroll through podcasts, trying to distract yourself, and land on something weird. The Stoic Snack. It's got a neon pink logo and promises ancient wisdom for modern woes. You press play. A calm British voice starts talking about intermittent fasting and the Roman military. Apparently, Roman soldiers often ate only once a day, believing discipline over appetite built resilience. Historians still argue whether this was more about resource scarcity than actual health, but you're intrigued. Not about the fasting, necessarily, but the idea of choosing control instead of having it forced on you. That night, you fall into a rabbit hole of ancient eating rituals. Did you know Cleopatra supposedly used to drink vinegar and water before meals to curb cravings? That's probably more myth than method, but still, there's something oddly comforting about imagining historical queens dealing with bloat. You start making small changes, not for the wedding, not even for the weigh-ins, but for your own weird little science experiment. Swapping sodas for sparkling water, walking the long way to the grocery store, logging what you eat without judging it. Baby steps. It's not glamorous, it's not even pretty, but that tiny click of choice, that little "you're doing this for you now" hits differently, and just like that, your power starts to shift. The gym still smells like despair and expired pre-workout powder, but today something happens. You finish your treadmill session without gasping like a Victorian ghost. You do 3 assisted pull-ups, and the last one doesn't feel like an exorcism. Even Chad, whose primary personality trait is yelling "let's go" in various octaves, gives you a nod. Not a clap, a nod. Respect. In that moment, sweaty and weirdly proud, you feel something snap into place, like a Lego brick finally finding its match. No one else notices. There's no dramatic music. But your reflection looks less defeated, and more like someone who might just pull this off. It reminds you of the first time you parallel parked perfectly on a busy street, or when you cooked risotto without crying. Tiny victories that shouldn't matter, but they do, because they whisper, "See? You're capable." You start noticing changes beyond the mirror. Your sleep gets deeper. You wake up before your alarm. Your knees still complain, but they've stopped threatening to file a formal complaint. Fun fact, in ancient Sparta, physical fitness wasn't about aesthetics. It was survival. Boys were trained from age 7 in agoge camps, learning combat, endurance, and, bizarrely, how to steal cheese without getting caught. Historians still argue whether this brutal regimen made Spartans stronger or just emotionally unavailable. At home, though, things stay weird. Your mom comments, "You're looking less tired," which is code for, "You finally resemble someone we can post on Facebook." Your sister says nothing, just stares when you walk in wearing jeans that haven't fit since 2019. You don't care. You're not doing it for their approval anymore. You're doing it for that subtle shift, that rising warmth in your chest when you realize you're not stuck anymore. The dress arrives in a big, dramatic box with gold lettering and tissue paper that probably costs more than your monthly grocery budget. Your sister opens it like she's unveiling the Ark of the Covenant. Everyone gathers around. There are gasps. Your mom tears up. Your aunt says, "It's like something a princess would wear." But then you walk in. You've just come from a workout, flushed and glowing in that post-exercise way that makes you look like a candle with biceps. You're wearing leggings and a tank top, hair in a messy bun, sipping water like a person who hydrates on purpose. You don't say anything, you just exist. And it ruins the moment. Your sister freezes. She doesn't look at you. She looks through you. And then the weirdness begins. Comments like, "You don't have to show off, you know," and "Just don't lose too much. We don't want you looking sick." You smile politely. You don't reply. You just sip your water like it's tea, and this is your drama now. Turns out jealousy is older than civilization. In ancient Mesopotamia, sibling rivalries were recorded on clay tablets. One particularly spicy feud involved 2 priestesses sabotaging each other's temple offerings. Historians still argue whether the rivalry was religious, personal, or over a guy named Tamu. Your mom tries to keep the peace, but even she seems thrown off by your vibe. You're not the underdog anymore. You're not the "let's just blend her into the group photo" one. And that makes things fragile. When your sister snaps that you'd better not upstage the bride, something inside you finally cracks, but not the way they expect. You don't break down. You don't lash out. You just tilt your head and say, "I didn't know this was a competition," and walk away. Things shift after that. Subtly, but unmistakably. You're still invited to wedding events, technically, but now you're left out of the group chats, the makeup trials, the secret Pinterest board. "You're busy with the gym anyway," your sister says, with a smile so brittle you can hear it cracking. At dinner one night, your dad jokes that you're getting a little intense about this whole fitness thing. Your mom says, "Don't become one of those people," which you assume means confident. You reply, "You mean people who like themselves?" And they laugh, but the tension crackles like static. It's strange how your glow-up, the very thing they wanted for you, now feels like a threat. Not because you've changed, but because they haven't. Still, you keep showing up. Not for them. For you. You start joining fitness forums, trying new recipes, experimenting with natural skincare, some of which includes fermented rice water and one ill-advised egg yolk mask that makes you smell like 14th century France. Speaking of which, medieval beauty routines were wild. Noble women used to apply lead-based powders for pale skin. Some even used arsenic wafers to, quote, clear the complexion. Historians still argue whether these rituals were rooted in class distinction or just pure, unfiltered vanity. You start noticing how people treat you differently now. The barista remembers your name. A coworker flirts for the first time ever. You catch your reflection and don't flinch. And the more they notice you, the more your family pretends not to. One night, while scrolling old photos, you pause on one from just 6 months ago. You don't feel shame. You feel grief, not for your body, no, never that, but for all the time you spent trying to be small enough to make others comfortable. No more shrinking. You've learned to take up space. The gym becomes your sanctuary, not just because of the routines or even the post-workout smoothies that taste vaguely like sadness and vanilla, but because it's the only place where no one knows you as someone's sister, someone's daughter. You're just you. And lately you're becoming someone worth looking twice at. One day a random woman stops you on the street. "Excuse me," she says, "where did you get your leggings?" You laugh. It's such a small moment, but it wraps around your ribs like armor. You thank her and float away like you've just won an award. Then there's Instagram. What started as a food journal turns into something else. You post side-by-sides, not for clout, just to remind yourself of the journey. But strangers begin commenting, cheering you on, asking questions, calling you glowing goals, and once, iconically, low-key goddess vibes. Your skincare routine, which now includes cold rolling, niacinamide, and the occasional Egyptian honey mask. Yes, Cleopatra did it, and yes, you Googled it 3 times to make sure. Becomes your bedtime ritual. Self-care used to be a buzzword. Now it's a boundary. In ancient Japan, geishas used crushed pearl powder as a beauty treatment. It was believed to brighten skin and bring a youthful glow. Historians still argue whether these rituals were cosmetic or spiritual in origin, but either way, the results must have slapped. Your sister notices the attention, of course. At brunch, she says, "You've really made this wedding all about you, huh?" And you smile, sip your oat milk latte, and say, "Funny, I thought I was just existing." You're not trying to outshine anyone. You're just not dimming your light anymore. And that's what rattles them most. The family photo shoot is supposed to be a bonding moment, matching pastel outfits, soft outdoor lighting, that carefully curated, we're close and totally functional vibe. Your mom hires a photographer with a vintage camera and a Pinterest mood board. You show up in a dress that hugs your waist, with shoulders back and skin glowing, like you've just returned from a Greek island. Your sister, in her peach chiffon, stiffens when she sees you. Your mom offers a tight smile. Your dad gives you a once-over and says, "Wow, didn't expect you to go so formal." You shrug. You said, "Dress nice." I listened. The photos begin, and you feel the shift like a wind change. The photographer keeps angling toward you, adjusting the light around you, asking you to step forward, tilt your chin, hold a smile just a little longer. Your sister fumes quietly. At one point she snaps, "This isn't your engagement shoot." You blink slowly and say, "It's not yours either. Yet." Tension simmers like an old pot about to boil. You keep your smile. That's power. Fun fact: in Renaissance Italy, portraits were a family status symbol. The person placed at the center was often the favorite, or the most politically useful. Historians still argue whether certain siblings were painted bigger on purpose, to signal dominance, or just to fit the frame better. Afterward, your mom says, "Maybe tone it down for the rehearsal dinner?" You nod, but you're not going to. You've spent a lifetime toning it down, shrinking in photos, slouching to hide, hiding behind others so no one would notice the softness, the roundness, the too muchness. Not anymore. When the proofs arrive a week later, your mom only sends a few to the family group chat. You're cropped out of most, but one, just one, makes its way to your inbox separately. You look amazing. The wedding day arrives with all the pomp and drama you expected, and some you didn't. You walk in, feeling like a queen in your carefully chosen dress, the one that celebrates your curves and your hard-earned confidence. You catch glimpses of your reflection in windows, glasses, and even the tiny mirror in the bathroom. You don't flinch, you don't shrink, you own it. Strangers at the reception compliment you like you're the star, which, honestly, feels pretty great. You overhear someone say, "She's glowing," like she stepped out of a magazine. Your sister's smile is tight, more practiced than sincere, and you wonder if she ever wanted this spotlight for herself. Historians still argue whether weddings in Victorian England were more about public display or private joy. But you know this one feels like a bit of both. The cheers, the laughter, the champagne bubbles, they blur into a moment where you finally feel free. The real transformation isn't in the dress or the looks. It's in your heart. The validation you thought you needed from your family? Turns out, you never did. You're standing here, radiant and resilient, because you chose to be, not because they told you to. Later, when your mom pulls you aside and says, "We didn't expect this," you smile. Because you know she means not just the weight loss, but the person you've become. And that's the real shocker. The ancient Greeks believed that physical beauty reflected inner harmony, what they called kalokagathia. Historians still argue whether this ideal was achievable or just a poetic fantasy. Maybe you found your own version of that harmony, not in their eyes, but in yours. Tonight, you're not just a guest or a bridesmaid or the before picture. You're the star of your own story. And it's only just beginning. After the wedding, everything feels surreal. The photos flood social media, likes and comments piling up like confetti. People you haven't spoken to in years reach out, saying things like, "You look amazing," and "What's your secret?" The glowing emojis practically burn your phone screen. It's intoxicating, but also strange. Your family's reaction is a mixed bag. Your sister, who was once the sole focus, now seems a little lost in her own celebration. Your parents oscillate between pride and discomfort, as if they're struggling to accept that the version of you they forced into this transformation is actually thriving on her own terms. At night, you scroll through messages from old friends and strangers alike, and you realize this success is less about the weight loss or the dress size, and more about reclaiming your narrative. You remember that your great-grandmother once said, "A woman who knows her worth shines brighter than any jewel." Maybe she stole that line from a Renaissance queen, or maybe she made it up over a cup of tea. Historians still argue how much family lore shapes our truths, but you like to think she was onto something. You sit by your window, the city lights twinkling softly below, the hum of distant cars like a lullaby. The journey wasn't easy, filled with frustration, doubt, and moments when you wanted to give up. But here you are, standing taller, breathing easier, glowing. Not because someone else said you should, but because you finally believe it yourself. You know the path ahead won't be perfect or linear. There will be days when the old voices creep back, whispering doubts. But for now, You embrace this hard-won peace, this quiet triumph that no one can take away. And as you close your eyes, you feel a deep, soothing calm settle over you, the calm of someone who has not just survived, but thrived.